Okay, let's get right into it. For a hot second there, it really looked like this tiny startup from 2022, Perplexity, could be the Netflix of search. It was fast, it was clean, it gave you direct answers, and best of all, no ads. It felt like a total revolution. But it didn't win. So what happened? This is the story of a great product, some brutal economics, and what happens when a sleeping giant finally wakes up.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? It's a pattern we see in tech again and again, but the AI search war just put it all into hyperdrive. It's the classic David versus Goliath story, but this time for the future of how we find anything and everything online.
To really get what was going on, you got to look at the two sides. On one side, you've got Google. We all know it, right? The 10 blue links, the endless SEO games, a screen just packed with ads. But on the other side, you had Perplexity's promise, direct answers to your questions with sources cited, all in this beautiful, clean, ad-free space. The difference was, it was night and day. And that promise, it got people talking. Investors, early adopters, they started whispering something really exciting. Could this actually be the Netflix of search? The idea that a little startup had finally cracked the code on a system that, let's be honest, felt increasingly broken, well, that was incredibly powerful. This was their pitch, and it was absolutely brilliant. Its power was in its simplicity. It just cut right to the core of why we were all getting so frustrated. We don't want to spend our time digging through links. We just want the answer. And Perplexity promised to deliver exactly that. To be honest, it felt like magic. And look, this wasn't just talk. The founders were AI insiders. These folks came from Google, DeepMind, OpenAI, the very companies that built this stuff. They launched in August 2022. And by early 2023, they had millions of users. The hype was absolutely real. For a moment there, it genuinely felt like they had fixed search. But just as fast as they shot up, this crack started to show in the armor. A problem that was lurking just beneath that slick, beautiful interface. A problem that would end up changing everything for them. And that problem had a name. Critics started calling Perplexity an AI wrapper. See, it didn't build its own giant foundational AI models from scratch. Instead, it was brilliantly using models from companies like OpenAI and Google and just building its answer engine on top of them. Now, to you and me, the user, that doesn't matter at all. But in the industry, it raised a really brutal question. If you don't own the core tech, what's stopping literally anyone from copying you? And that question got answered fast. Perplexity's killer feature, getting answers with sources, it just stopped being unique. Microsoft went and put ChatGPT right into Bing. Then Google launched its AI overviews. Heck, even ChatGPT itself started adding citations. All of a sudden, Perplexity's magic trick was just everyone's new standard feature. So, once your cool new product isn't so unique anymore, the fight shifts. It's no longer about features, it becomes about economics. And that, my friends, is a game a startup is almost guaranteed to lose against a giant like Google. This right here was the core issue. Think of it like a physics problem. For over 2 decades, Google has been optimizing the cost of a single search down to fractions of the penny. Perplexity, on the other hand, had to use an expensive large language model for every single answer. They were basically lighting money on fire with every single query while trying to compete against the most efficient information machine ever built. So, okay, how do you pay for all those expensive queries? Well, Perplexity tried what they called a trust-preserving ad model. The idea was to avoid all the junk you see on Google. But the results, well, just look at this number. According to reports, the company generated just $20,000 in total ad revenue, not per month, total. The model was a complete bust. And if that wasn't enough, then the lawsuits started rolling in. Publishers started accusing them of scraping content, of reproducing articles way too closely. You had the New York Times, the BBC, Reddit, they all took issue. And this was a huge blow because it damaged Perplexity's reputation as the ethical alternative, which was a big part of their appeal. But the final boss in this whole story, it wasn't technology and it wasn't money. It was something way more powerful, human habit. And this is where we learn a really tough lesson in tech. Distribution is almost always more powerful than disruption. Just look at these numbers. Google has 90% of the market. And think about this. Microsoft literally plugged GPT-4, the most advanced AI on the planet at the time, directly into Bing. They had every possible advantage. And after all that, Bing's market share barely moved. So if Microsoft couldn't break our Google habit, what chance did a small startup really have? This quote pretty much sums up the entire problem. Perplexity built a better product, no doubt, but they were trying to replace a single brick. Google didn't just own the brick, they owned the entire fortress. Search wasn't just a product anymore, it had become the basic infrastructure of the internet. And this is what that fortress looks like. You've got Chrome, you've got Android, Google Drive, YouTube, the list goes on. All of these products funnel billions of us into Google search every single day. It's the default on our phones, in our browsers. You're not just competing with a search box. You're competing against an entire ecosystem. All right, so let's put a bow on this. Where does all of this leave us? What's the final verdict on Perplexity's ambitious war against Google? Well, the goal, the dream, was to replace Google, to totally redefine search. But the reality? Perplexity became a fantastic, super powerful tool for researchers and power users, a niche audience, and its core idea? It just became a new feature for the big guys. It was impressive, for sure, but it wasn't a revolution. So who really won this war? The giants, of course. Google just absorbed the idea of AI answers right into its existing fortress. Microsoft used it to make Bing and Windows a little better, and OpenAI just added similar features to ChatGPT. They all got to benefit from Perplexity's innovation without taking the initial risk. So it all kind of boils down to this survival formula. Having a great product, that's just step one. It's the price of entry. You also need economics that actually work, a massive distribution channel to get to users, and, well, perfect timing. Perplexity nailed the first one, but really struggled with the other three. And all of this leaves us with a final, kind of scary question. When the big guys can copy and absorb new ideas this quickly, and their distribution power is this massive, what does that mean for the next generation of innovators? Is the era of the truly disruptive startup over? Definitely something to think about.